Good evening, everyone. On behalf of Burlington English, I'm very happy to welcome you all for yet another session of a webinar on a wonderful topic by Dr. Swati Papatwast. Let me introduce ma'am to you all. Dr. Swati Popat is a global early childhood expert with over 34 years of experience. She has coined the term education as a guiding philosophy for her curriculums and has recently developed a non-screen-based curriculum for a pre-coding curriculum for early years that helps children learn how to learn and think. She has written more than 25 books for teachers, parents, and children. She is presently the president of W.A.T.E.R Education Network and Early Childhood Association of India. Over to you, ma'am.
Namaskar, and thank you very much, Meena, for that introduction. And I must also thank you because you're going to be helping with my slides today. And definitely missing Lena today, and because in every session she has been there. But it's always a pleasure to do these sessions with Burlington because we are able to reach so many educators, and we are able to help them understand different perspectives in foundational years. The topic for today is quite unique. Um, this is a word that I have coined. This is an acronym that I have coined because when we see schools talking about STEM education or STEAM education or now stream education, we need to understand that before we help children understand science, technology, engineering, math, etc., there are certain things that we need to do for them, and that is what the acronym WATER stands for. And if you see in science also, steam cannot come if there is no water. So that is where I have linked the two, that water before STEAM education and how we can help create learning foundations for life. So let's go to the next slide. Today, I'm going to help the participants understand about what and how can classrooms be made more vibrant and your curriculums be made into learning curriculums, live learning curriculums. That is very important. So basically, what is STEAM? Everybody knows what STEAM is about. It started as STEM. So the first acronym that the world came to know about was STEM. STEM was science, technology, engineering, and math. And then, of course, the art community said that none of these can work without a design element, without creativity. You can't have science without design. You can't have engineering or technology or math without design and art. And that's why the element of art or design or creativity was added, and STEM became STEAM. And then, of course, a lot of educators said that what about literacy and numeracy? Without reading, writing, number work, you can't do science, technology, engineering, art, or math. And that's how STEM became STEAM and STEAM became STREAM. So let's go to the next slide because it's very important for us to understand that why do schools choose STEM or STEAM or STREAM learning? It's very important that our national curriculum framework for both foundational years and school education is now focused on life skills, which are also learning skills. Now, what are these skills? The skills are working with others, which means collaboration, remembering, which means how do you build your memory? Are you building your memory only with rote learning, or are you building your memory with understanding? The ability to question. I've noticed that this ability is also lacking in many adults. They hesitate to ask questions. They feel that it is insulting to ask questions because that's how we were brought up, in our education system, because maybe because our education system was based on Macaulay, and the British did not want us to ask questions. So questioning is a very important skill. Questioning solves your problems. Questioning makes you think. And the more your students ask you questions, it means they are thinking and making connections. In fact, in my team meetings, I always get disappointed if my teams don't ask me questions, because that means you're not thinking about your work, or you're not thinking about how to do things better, or why you are doing what you are doing. Understanding. It's very important that no knowledge is complete unless you've understood it. If you've not understood it, that means it's always going to be a kind of a speed breaker in your journey of learning. Creativity. Yes, you have to keep on coming out with creative ideas. That is the need of the hour. Like today, let me give you an example. I was talking to a staff, and there was a decision taken that I want to do this. So I said, have you thought it through that if you take this decision, what could be the consequences? So, what are the consequences? If you can already think about it, then you will be able to understand whether my plan will work or not work. And that is what creative thinking does for you. It helps you put your thoughts into a vision plan, and it helps you see ahead. And that is also closely connected to logical thinking. That's exactly what logical thinking is all about. So if you don't have creative skills, you will not have logical thinking. It's as simple as that. It's like this game. If I were to ask you all, and I want you to put your answers on the chat box, if I were to ask you all, and don't think too much about what I'm going to ask you, just say the first thing that comes to your mind. What if clouds had strings? What's the first thought that comes to your mind? What if clouds had strings? Let me see what are the kind of comments that I am getting. So if clouds had strings, I would climb up. I would use them as balloons. I would hang from them. I would pull them down. We would swing. We would fly. You saw this? All this. Everybody is now imagining that what would I do if clouds had strings? So you're using your creativity, your creative thinking. Uh, you are not seeing in front of you clouds with strings. You are imagining them. And that's when all these thoughts are coming to you. Now I'm going to ask you another question. So pause. I'm going to ask you another question. What would happen to the birds if clouds had strings? So while you are all flying with the strings and hanging and pulling the clouds, and there are birds flying, what would happen to them? Oh, yes. The birds would get entangled in the strings and they would die. What would happen to airplanes which are flying up and suddenly a cloud is pulled by you and comes in front of the pilot? What would happen to airplanes? Now, if you all are all pulling clouds to each other, don't you think countries would be able to rob rain clouds from each other? So, which means there would be drought in certain countries and there would be excess rain in certain countries. So, I'm going to ask you my last question, and I want you to answer that on the chat box. Should clouds have strings? Yes and no. It's a yes or no question. Should clouds have strings? And you got your answer no. This is called logical thinking, where you use your creativity. You go to the end of what I can do with it. So this is what I taught my staff today. And when she said, I want to send this to the team, and I said, think, when you send this to the team, what are they going to do with it? Think of everything that they are going to do with it. Now, is that going to help them? Then should you be sending it? So you see, STEAM education builds these qualities in you. So whether you are a child in the foundational years, whether you're a child in high school, whether you are in college, or even whether you are an adult, I use STEAM a lot. I try to connect all the ideas because each of the elements of STEAM gives you a quality, gives you a skill that becomes your life skill. Let's go to the next slide. And if you want to play this game with your children, you can always ask them another question. You can say, what if cities were made of chocolate? Just ask them that and then see how their thinking goes. First, it will all be positive. Everybody will want to eat the chocolates and everything. And then you need to put a pause. And then you used to ask them questions that what would happen to your teeth because you're eating so much chocolate. The whole city is made of chocolate. Would there be an increase in cockroaches and rats? So you have to make them, basically, what you are helping them do is balance what they are trying to see. And then after they see the balance, you are helping them choose the right from the wrong. It's as simple as that. So, what is water? Water is nothing but an acronym that before you start children on activities to do with science, activities to do with technology, engineering, and all that, Maslow before you bloom is a very common phrase you must have heard, that Maslow before you bloom. So, Bloom's taxonomy is all about teaching children about evaluation and judgments and reasoning, etc. Maslow is about the needs. So, first, have you taken care of children's needs or the needs of what the child will need in the school before you started STEAM? And that is why it's called water before STEAM. So, what does water stands for? Water stands for why, what, when, how. The W stands for why, what, when, how. A stands for attention and amygdala. T stands for theories. E stands for emergency and safety. And R stands for readiness. So let's see each one of these in detail. Let's go to the next slide. W, the why, the what, the when, and the how. Let's see the next slide. One of the most important things I just asked you is that we don't ask enough questions. We just do what we are told. But if you were to ask the why, if you just say to somebody, why should I do this? Or how is this important? Or what will I get if I do this? Or when should I do this? And I've noticed this lack of questioning is the most in educators. We just accept something that somebody tells us without reasoning, without logical thinking, without asking questions. So, simple things like for generations, we've been using the red and blue line, and we've seen children struggle with the red and blue line, but we'll keep on using it. For generations, our children have struggled with cursive writing, but we'll keep on using it. We don't ask the question why or how does this help? Or what can I do which can be different? And that is very important. Now you will say, STEAM education and all this questioning and all, should it be taught to very young children? So I'm going to show you these photographs. I commonly show them in all my workshops because it's a gentle reminder for us about the power of a child's brain. So look at these photographs in the screen in front of you. You have an 18-month-old baby who's going through some magazine. And then if you see the second photograph, there the baby pauses because the baby sees pictures of watches. Let's see the next slide. Now, if you see the picture on the left, the baby is pointing to the trained educator who's sitting next to the baby and is pointing. And if the see the facial expression of the child, it's an inquiring expression. So you saw even an 18-month baby asks why or what, even though the child still has not got language development. So it is the need of the brain. The brain has to learn, just like our tongues have to talk and our mouths have to eat. The brain has to learn. So look at this 18 months child. The child got interested in something and immediately asked a question to the educator. What did the educator do? Look at the picture on the right. She showed the child her own watch and the child touched the watch. Let's see the next slide. Now she went a step further because she's a trained educator. And she made the child listen to the sound of the watch and look at the expression on the child's face. Somewhere the child made a connection. The child realized that the picture in the magazine is the picture, it means this watch, and this watch has a sound. But not, it didn't stop there. Let's look at the next picture. Can you go back? There's a slide missing. Oh dear, there's a slide missing. Okay. So in the next picture, which is not here, the child puts the head on the magazine, because now the child has connected that this watch, which the teacher showed me, is the same watch as the picture in the magazine. And if this has a sound, then the magazine picture also must be having a sound. So, which means the child did an investigation. So it started with questioning, the child made a connection, and then the child was investigating. And this is what we don't do for children. When we answer them too early, or we help them too fast, or we tell them, don't ask me questions, don't talk right now, don't ask me questions. That means we are stunting their brain growth. Let's go to the next slide. This is my favorite poster, which I made a long time back, because I wanted educators to understand that most of us know the what. We know what we have to teach. We know we have to teach if we are in the foundation years. We know we have to teach phonics, and we have to teach numbers and addition and subtraction. When we are in high school, we know that we have to teach certain subjects like history and English and physics and geometry and algebra. We know the what. We also somehow know the how, that okay, I'm going to teach this in this manner, I'm going to use a video to teach this, or I'm going to use a story format to teach this, or I'm going to use an experiment to teach this. We know the how. But if most of us are asked about the why, and that's what children ask, a common question most children ask their math teacher is, when will I use algebra? Because they hate algebra. And most of the time the maths professor is not able to give them a very a convincing reply, and just says, shut up, just do the algebra. So it's very important that why is something that's always there in our brain. It's always there on the tip of our tongue. Why? And it's your why which is the first thing in water. You can't teach STEAM or STEM or stream if you're not ready to answer the why. It is the why that makes sense. It is the why that brings sense. So remember this poster. It's not about only the what, it's not only about the how. Please ask the question why and ask it often. And when you do that, you will become a good educator. You will become a best educator. Your school will become the best school. The school that asks why, and the school that lets children ask why. Let's go to the next slide. Like, for example, look at this one and look at what it says. It says, पूरा बचपन हैंडराइटिंग सुधारने में गुजार गया और जिंदगी कीबोर्ड पर बीत रही है. Do we ask question why? That why do we make children write so much? Why do we make them write something 20 times or 30 times? Even now, presently in the workforce, we are writing less and typing more. So that child who is in your class right now, think about that child. When the child will enter the workforce, child is actually not going to write at all. By that time, AI would have been so much far ahead that आप जो सोचोगे वो AI type कर लेगा. Forget even about speaking. When this child grows up, AI would have gone to another level. So, are we focusing on the right things when we talk about curriculum? Or are we wasting too much time on the unnecessary? Let's go to the next slide. So, what did Mahatma Gandhi say? Mahatma Gandhi said that good handwriting is necessary. And he said this almost 120 years back. And he said, I'm now of the opinion that children should first be taught the art of drawing before learning how to write. But we don't do drawing. We don't allow children to draw. If they start drawing, we say घर ऐसा ही होना चाहिए, हाउस के ऊपर एक रूफ होना चाहिए, दो विंडो होने चाहिए, एक डोर होना चाहिए, sun should always be on the side of the. We do not even allow them to draw. You know, I recently took a workshop on drawing and documentation, and many of the participants tried it with the children, and then they say, ma'am, what to do when children don't draw? I said, हो ही नहीं सकता है कि बच्चे drawing ना कर रहे हो, because a drawing is again an innate need of a child. The child, you give a pencil in their hand or a crayon in their hand, they start drawing. But when an adult starts judging their drawing, then they stop drawing. So if a child is not drawing, what does it mean? It means this child has encountered an adult who has actually shot down this child's urge to draw. So, what does Mahatma Gandhi say? If you see the last line of the first paragraph, he says that when children learn to draw, it will help children not to scroll the alphabet. Because when we say na ganda handwriting acha nahi hai, if you have given drawing to children before writing, their writing will be very good, because drawing and writing both have patterns. Children should be taught to read before they are taught to write. But we are doing, sometimes in most of the schools, we are doing the complete opposite. Why? We don't ask the question, why? Let's go to the next slide. Look at this. When you say, no, children don't draw. Now, here is a child who's 6 years old, five something, because he's in senior KG. And look at it. The child is able to write the number 4. The child is able to write the number name 4. And the child is able to draw 4. And what has the child drawn? Because there's Gandhi Jayanti coming next week. What has this child drawn? The child has drawn Mahatma Gandhi and the 3 monkeys. 4. See how beautifully the child is connected? And each child in the class would have drawn something different for 4. So here is what children want to do, and there is what you want children to do. You want them to write number 4, you want them to write the number name 4, but here I also want to draw and show you 4. Let's go to the next slide. Look at this. Because we don't ask the question why. Remember, with this game, I taught you that put a vision, that if I were to give this worksheet to the child, what is the child going to see in this worksheet? So in this worksheet, the teacher said, write down, what do we use water for? The child has written drinking, bathing, washing, rehydrate, energy, grow a plant, science experiments. And then the child has written waking up somebody. Look at what the child has written. Waking up somebody. And instead of putting a tick, the teacher has circled it, and that too with a red pen. Again, we don't ask a question. Why do we use a red pen? Why don't we use a blue pen or a green pen? Why do we have to scare children with a red pen? And look at this teacher. This teacher is not creative at all. The teacher has a fixed mindset. How there are so many homes in which, if you don't get up on time, many of the mothers throw a little water on your face. When you have fainted, when somebody has fainted, what do? We sprinkle water on their face. So this child is absolutely right, waking up somebody. Maybe the child must have seen this. How can you say that this child is wrong? Why would you say that this child is wrong? Let's see the next slide. Again, here, the child has done something completely different. So the mother said, the teacher said, this cat is hungry, help the cat reach the milk. And she gave the child a maze. But the child found an easier way to take the cat to the milk. But did the teacher think about this? She didn't foresee this. And that's because we don't ask why. Had she foreseen this, she would have rephrased her instruction to the cat is hungry, use the maze to help the cat reach the milk. It was just a little bit about tweaking the instruction. But I like this teacher. This teacher is a growth mindset teacher. She has given a star, she's given tick, although she's used a red pen again, because we teachers are obsessed with a red pen. We think it's a weapon. हमारे हाथ में एक weapon आ गया, लाल pen. So we have to remove that mindset. But it's such a beautiful, I like this teacher because at least she has a growth mindset. That is fine. Even if the child has done it like this, the child is right. Next one. So when to ask the question why or how or what, parents ask it a lot. ये क्यों कराते हो? But no, parents will never say ये क्यों कराते हो. Parents will say ये क्यों नहीं कराते हो. So the minute a school wants to stop writing for 3-year-olds, a parent will come and say क्यों नहीं कराते हो? बाजू का स्कूल तो कराता है. And this poster always helps me convince parents. Because on the left is what a parent thinks that the child is seeing. So when you hang those little toys above a child's crib, this is what we think the child needs or the child sees. But if you see on the right, the child is lying like this. तो नीचे से उसको क्या दिख रहा है? उसको bottoms दिख रहे हैं animals के. उसको animals दिख ही नहीं रहे हैं. And this helps me convince so many parents that what you want for your child may not always be right for your child and may not always be what your child needs. Let's see the next slide. So, STEM based learning, let's give a twist by using STEM in everyday life with the what, the why, the when, how. Encourage children to notice things. Rarely we give children time to notice things. Sometimes change something in the environment of the classroom and ask the children, do you notice something has changed? Maybe you took the clock and put it somewhere else. Something very noticeable. Bring about a change and see whether children noticed it or are they taking their environment for granted. Encourage children to describe things that they see or do. And this is why in my workshop on drawing on documentation, I said, help children describe their drawing and then write it down. So when you help children describe what they are seeing, you are helping them understand it more. Ask what questions before why questions. So, which means instead of saying, why do bubbles stick together? You can ask, what is happening to the bubbles? When you say, why do bubbles stick together? You've already given them the answer. Okay, bubbles are sticking together. Then you're not giving them chance to notice something. So instead of that, when you're doing bubble play or you're doing bubbles in that bowl, ask them, what do you think? What are you seeing which is happening to the bubbles? The bubbles are growing bigger. The bubbles are sticking to each other. The bubbles are flying. So many answers will come. It means children have started noticing things. And when you give an opportunity to children to notice, then comes understanding, then comes questioning, then comes realization, then comes logical thinking. It's so simple. Let's see the next slide. So, W, always remember what, why, when, how. Ask that more often and let children also ask that more often. Attention and amygdala. Let's go to the next slide. I have done so many brain development workshops in which I have spoken about this so many times that we all have to be careful about this little part in all our brains, which is called the amygdala. And the amygdala is the security center of our brain. If the amygdala perceives stress, the amygdala shuts down the brain. It's as simple as that. Stress dikha, brain band. And then you will only see 4 kinds of reactions. Either the children will freeze, they are not able to answer, or they will start wanting to run, flee, okay, flight. They want to run away from the situation, or they will start crying. So when you see this kind of behavior, or they'll start back answering you, older children will start back answering you. So when you see these behaviors, a good educator knows something has happened to the amygdala and I will never get their attention when they are in this state. Let's go to the next slide. So this is what you will see when the amygdala shuts down. Fight, flight, flock, freeze. Any age group, any age group, when the amygdala shuts down, even as an adult, even in staff, in many of my staff, I have seen sometimes when they are under stress, they show these reactions. And it's very important for us to understand that that means that brain has shut down. But as adults, we can at least control ourselves under stress. Children are not able to control themselves when under stress. And if you think teenagers have more sense, I'm sorry, teenagers react very violently to stress. So a toddler and a teenager's brain is almost reacting in the similar manner. Let's go to the next slide. So it's very important for us to understand that when a child is under stress, the brain has shut down. Now, if you are trying to teach them in this stressful situation, it is like, the child's mouth is closed, but I'm throwing some food at the child and I'm saying, yeah, the child is eating. Look at the quotation given here. Learning can only happen when a child is interested. If he is not interested, it's like throwing marshmallows at his head and calling it eating. Just because you have thrown food at the child doesn't mean the child has eaten it. So, similarly, just because you've thrown knowledge at a child doesn't mean the child has learnt it. And this is very important for teachers to understand. The A of water is about the connection between attention and amygdala. If amygdala is hyper, your attention is gone. So, if you want attention, make the amygdala calm. Very important. Let's go to the next slide. So, Maria Montessori gave these steps in her. If you read her books, you will understand that for her, intelligence is about 4 steps: attention, processing, memory, retention. So, if the first step itself is missing, children will not learn. So, if your amygdala has shut down, there is no attention. So, forget about the child processing it or remembering it or retaining it. What is processing? Processing is the ability to understand something. And understanding only happens when I question. Okay? Once my understanding has happened, it goes in my memory. But memory doesn't mean I will be able to remember it whenever I want it. That's called retention. So when you do something in an enjoyable manner with me, it goes into my long term memory, which is on the right side of my brain. And then whenever I want to retrieve that knowledge, I am able to retain it and recall it. Retain it and recall it. But it all starts with attention. Attention. Why do you think in the military, that's the first thing that say when you have to go and march? They say attention. That's it, because it's so important. Without attention, there is nothing will go into the brain. Let's go to the next slide. T. So the W stands for why, what, when, where, how. A stands for attention and amygdala. Now the T stands for theories. Do we know educational theories? Let's go to the next slide. So let's play a game again with all of you. There are 4 film stars, and one of them is a TV star. So 3 film stars and 1 TV star in these 4 photographs. Can you name them? Please write in the chat box. Can you identify them? There are 3 film stars and 1 television star. Can you identify them? I'm already seeing Malaika Arora and Ajay Devgan and Ravina Tandon and Ajay Devgan and Karanveer Bora. Oh, wow. So everybody has recognized everybody. Wonderful. You seem to be a very smart set of participants. So I'm going to now show you another slide. I'm sure you will be able to identify them. Let's go to the next slide. Identify them. Identify them. हाँ, सारे हीरो हीरोइन मालूम है हमको, but we are educators. These are our hero heroines. These are the people we should be knowing about. But rarely do we know all the educators. Let's go to the next slide. It's not Warren Buffet. Whoever said there's Warren Buffet, there's no Warren Buffet. Okay? Look at all these people. These are all the people that we need to know about as educators. They are our film stars and television stars. These are all mentioned in the National Education Policy 2020. And they are from India and abroad. And that's why I love to call them glocal. Now, I have recently published a book. This is the book that I have published. So it is called the A to Z of Early Childhood. I'm not able to see it. I'll show it to you at the end. It's the A to Z of Early Childhood Education. And all these people, or any theories, or any words, or any phrases, or any curriculum that you want in education is mentioned in that book. You must buy the book from Early Childhood Association website. I have put the website name in the chat box. Please procure your copy. Every educator should have a copy. Now let's go to the next slide. So when we talk about theories, WA.T.E.R, T stands for theories. One of the common mistakes that we make is we don't understand at what age to teach what to children, because we don't ask the question why also. And that's why, because we don't know the theories, we don't ask the question why, and we lose children's attention. Saw the connection? We don't know theories, and that's why we don't ask the question why. Or we don't ask the question why, and that's why we don't know theories, and we lose children's attention. For example, I saw a video recently. I am posting it on my Facebook and LinkedIn page on Monday. Please have a look at it. A father tells a child, a young child, to count five backwards. So, what do you actually mean? You want the child to say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, right? So, you know what this child did? It was a girl child. You know what she did? She started counting backwards by saying one, then she moved back, two, then she took another step back, three, then she took another step back, four. So she took it literally. She's counted backwards by walking backwards. Now you will say how foolish she is. No, that means you've not understood Piaget's cognitive development stages. Up to the age of 5 years, children sometimes are not able to comprehend two differing concepts together. So, for example, if you tell a child who's 3 years old that, you know, your mummy is my sister, the child will say, no, she's my mummy. She can't be your sister. She's my mummy. She can't be your sister. She's my mummy. They'll start fighting with you. That's two concepts, that this person has two relationships. She's your mother, but my sister. According to this child, if this person is my mother, she's everybody's mother. So they can't be two relationships. And this is something that we have to be very careful when we put it in our workbooks. So I've seen many a times when I do quality audits, I see schools saying, color the square yellow and the circle red. So confusing for children. So many concepts together. So confusing. Now, when you confuse me, what's happening to my amygdala? It's going to shut down. My attention will go for a toss. So, it is very, very important to understand Piaget's stages of cognitive development. Theories. Let's go to the next slide. Look at this. This is the worksheet that I was talking about. Color the circles red, triangles blue, rectangles yellow, squares green. गया मेरा attention तो गया, totally गया. ये instruction देख के ही मेरा attention चला गया. And then you'll say this child is not able to do worksheets. Or every time I put a workbook in front of the child starts crying. Yeah, because the child has now associated a book or a worksheet with stress. So the minute it comes in front of them, they start crying. They don't pay attention. Let's go to the next slide. E, we did water, which is why, what, where, when, how. A stands for attention and amygdala. T stands for theories. And E stands for emergency and safety. One of the things that controls our brain is our ability to feel safe. So if you see Maslow's hierarchy of needs, safety is the second most important need after food and water. If I don't feel safe, I won't pay attention. If I won't pay attention, I will not learn. Next slide. So, what are the safety standards that we should all be looking at? SAFE, systems, abuse awareness, foresight, and environment. Let's go to the next slide. Next. So, what are systems? What are your systems and who is aware of them? Many schools tell me, ma'am, we have a lot of safety systems in place. I said, but are your parents aware of them? No, they are not aware of them. Are the children aware of them? No, they are not aware of them. Are your teachers aware of them? No, they are not aware of them. Then what's the use? So have your safety systems in place and please see that every stakeholder is aware of them. What are safety systems? Do you have policies? For example, there should be a zero tolerance policies for teacher or any staff to shout, scream, abuse, hit, or badly touch a child. That's called your policies. What are your behavior management policy? What is your safety sexual abuse policy? What do you have, an anti sexual abuse policy? What is it? Your policies need to be well defined in your, what do you call it, your school diary or your website. Number 2, your staff, all your staff should be trained on what to do and when. If there is a fire, what am I supposed to do? If there is a case of child sexual abuse, what am I supposed to do? If the child is hurt, what am I supposed to do? For example, we take children on field trips to a garden, but we are not prepared. What if a bee bites a child? What if a bee stings a child? What are you supposed to do? Oh my God, that time everybody will go hyper. I know schools do a lot of fire drills. Do you do a bus fire drill? Because we've never heard in the newspaper कि एक बस में आग लगी थी, तो we will wait कि कोई स्कूल के बस में आग लगेगी, फिर हम लोग बस फायर ड्रिल भी करेंगे. बिकॉज बस में अगर आग लगेगी तो तुम लोग क्या करोगे? इज द स्टाफ ट्रेन्ड ऑन दैट? डू दे इवन नो हाउ टू ओपन दैट इमरजेंसी window? Does that emergency window open or is it jammed? You know, a few years back, there was this huge fire in a Delhi restaurant because there was only one door. And then everybody thought, okay, now there should be two doors in a restaurant, an entry door and an exit door. So when you enter any place, is there an exit? Which is your exit? If the fire happens on the first floor, where will you take the children? All this, what to do and when. Who to do that, what to do. Have you assigned roles? Who will do that, what to do and when? Otherwise, everybody will start doing the same thing and nobody will be doing the other things. How to do? Have you trained them on how to do it when that happens? And also, did you train them on why they are supposed to do it? Like, for example, when a child sexual abuse case happens in your school, one of the first instincts is to hide it. Hide it from the parents, hide it from everybody. But do you know that there is mandatory reporting, otherwise you can be jailed? So if you don't teach them the why we are doing it, why is it necessary? Chaos. There will be chaos, and a chaotic school can never be a learning school. Let's go to the next slide. So, all your safety standards, all your safety policies, where all should they be? They should be on your website. They should be in your school diaries. You should make parents aware of the policies and sign them that yes, I am aware that the school has this policy. नहीं तो बाद में बोलेंगे हमको तो पता ही नहीं था. Make staff aware of all these policies and make them sign them. Then you can say, I am a safety equipped school. Next slide. And most importantly, if you understand about safety, you need to learn about risk assessment. As I said, you take children to a garden for a field trip. Do you do a risk assessment before taking them to the garden? A risk assessment means what are the kind of insects that are going to be there in this garden? What if one of the insects bites a child? Do I have the right medicines with me? What are the areas where I need to ensure that my children don't go to those areas in the garden? Otherwise, they will get hurt. Where is the nearest toilet if I have to take a child? How is that toilet manned? Because if you're going with older children and you send the child alone to the toilet and there's a male guy there who's going to sexually abuse them, so you need to do a risk assessment of any new environment in which you are going to take children. You have to go a day prior and do the risk assessment. Where are the exits? If something happens, where are the exits? We just don't do risk assessment. All schools abroad have to mandatorily do risk assessments. Let's go to the next slide. And very important, CCTV डाल दिया बस काम हो गया ऐसे नहीं होता है. Let's have some sensible systems, like having a buddy system. There's a spelling error there. It's not budding system, it's buddy system. A buddy system means every child has a friend. So, and that child always goes everywhere with that friend. So even if you have to send them to the toilet, that buddy will go along. So if anything happens to the child anywhere, you always have a witness. Alarms. Do you have enough alarms around your school? Drills. Do you do enough drills? Do you check the identity cards of the adults before they come into your premises? Do you do background check of your employees? Are you aware of no child being left alone? So when the children come down from the bus, do you ensure that you go right up to the back seat to check कि अदर कोई बच्चा सो नहीं रहा है? Identify red flags. Okay, where can a mistake happen and how can it happen? Then you can say that my school is a very safe school. Next slide, please. And the last is readiness. Let's see what readiness is all about. Next. Readiness means you are preparing children's brains for learning. You are creating that environment which is so relaxed that children will learn in it. For example, you are doing story time. Before you turn the next page, you say, can you predict what will be on the next page? So you are every step, every activity, you are ensuring that children are using their brains. Because if you make me sit like this and just watch the story and listen to you talk for 20 minutes, I'm going to be bored as a child. So involve me in every activity. Let's see the next slide. Say you are doing rhyme session. How can you involve STEAM in that? So plan your rhyme sessions also very well, or your singing sessions, or your rhyme booklets, etc. Uh, Put a song on a water cycle, so you've taken care of science. Put a song on traffic lights, so you've taken care of technology. Put a song on bridges or buildings, so you've taken care of engineering. Put a song on words and phrases, you've taken care of arts or literacy and numeracy. And then put a song on shapes, colors, numbers, and you've taken care of math. That's your STEAM. So STEAM is not only about, okay, bada engineering karenge hum, science karenge. It can start from the early years, where you've given that mindset of STEAM education to you've prepared their mind for future learning. You have readied their mind for future learning. Let's go to the next slide. Talk in STEAM. We've become a generation which doesn't use very good words or descriptive words. If somebody asks us, how's the weather? Nice. How was the food? Nice. How was your cousin? Nice. um, Everything is nice, or it is awesome. How was the movie? Awesome. How were the snacks? Awesome. How is that city? Awesome. We forgot to use descriptive words. So that means the vocabulary of our children is not growing. Look at the words given on this slide: speckled, shiny, bumpy, spongy, thorny, jagged, scaly. We don't use these words. Twist, sprinkle, rustle, melt, float, sink, current, flow. We don't use these words. Unless it's a physics lesson or a chemistry lesson, we don't use these words. But you can actually describe a lot of things by saying the road was very bumpy today, or that rose is quite thorny, or avoid that corner, it's jagged and might hurt you. See, so many ways we can involve these words. In our classrooms, we have the password. If a child wants to enter the class after going out, there is a password. And password is the word of the day. So today's password may just be thorny. So that's the way to teach children new words every day in a fun manner. Let's go to the next slide. Maria Montessori again said this, that learning has three things required: brain, senses, muscles. If these three are not involved, no learning can happen. Next, please. And that's why even something as boring as writing, a boring, for a pencil also, you have to ready the mind and the body. Use the five senses, use the brain, and then you will have children who will love writing. So the most boring activity in school is writing for many children. That also can be made fun if you just involve the five senses and the brain. Let's go to the next slide. For example, we all love to have phonics in our school, right? We say phonics, 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 phonics. Please read what's written on this slide, and you all will be able to read it. If you read the one on the left, it says, if you read this, thank a teacher. And if you can read this, you probably are a teacher. And look at the one on the right. Intelligence is the ability to adapt to changes, Stephen Hawking. It's not given in the same spelling. It's not given in the first letter or last letter same. You see this? See the one on the right. So it's all about whole language development. And that's why I like the Burlington English program and the Burlington Early Years program in literacy. It's not only about phonics. We are a phonics obsessed country. Let's go to the next slide. So the NCF talks about literacy, and Maria Montessori talks about literacy on the right hand side. And they both are the same. That means we somewhere along the way have forgotten how to teach literacy to children. Let's see the next slide. Numeracy, this is what the NCF says. The Nipun Bharat document says that you have to start with concrete, then go to pictorial, and then go to abstract worksheets. But how do we teach numbers to children? सीधा worksheet पे डाल दिया या writing कर दिया, and then they hate maths for life. Let's see the next slide. This is what, before you start with numerals, start with quantity. Let me see what a 5 looks like. Let me see what a 4 looks like. Let me see what a 3 looks like. Next one. That's called readiness. Did you ready my brain to learn? And please, friends, if you all are still using these kind of worksheets, please throw them out. Throw them out, ban the publisher, because this publisher has a fixed mindset and not a growth mindset. How will I teach? How will I learn 11 by coloring 11 bees? Please tell me that. It's such a boring activity. It's very boring. So, which means if all of you know about 5,000, because you are all big and you know numbers up to 5,000, should I give you coloring of 4,991 objects? I mean, it's ridiculous what we are doing to our children. We're not readying their brain for the real stuff. Next slide. Are we readying them for the world of technology? We are not. We teach them about a traffic signal, which they will use when they will drive a car. Okay, right now, even crossing the road, their mother makes them do it. But they are using a mobile phone. Are we readying them for it? If you're watching a screen, take a break. If you're watching a screen, take a break. Go outside and play. It's fun to take a break. If you're watching a screen, take a break. Why can't we teach them these songs so that they learn how to be with technology? Let's go to the next slide. I'm going to leave you with this slide because I always feel whenever you attend any learning session, play rock, paper, scissors. Afterwards, sit and ask yourself, what was the rock of this presentation? For you, what was the rock of this presentation? What was the paper in this presentation? Points that you felt like writing down. And what convinced you in this presentation to use the scissor? Which means, what are the practices that you would like to remove from your classroom or your curriculum or your school after listening to this presentation? So please play rock, paper, scissors. And please ensure that we all give water first before we start steam. Thank you very much, all of you, for being here with us today. And look forward to the fourth Saturday, 4 p.m. workshops with Burlington. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for a wonderful session. The last 5 minutes, maybe we can request you to take a few questions.
Absolutely.
So, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions, please feel free to post it on chat or in the Q&A. Ma'am, while they are posting, we already have one question, one from Sudha ma'am. This is related to the policies that we were talking about, the safety policies in schools. She would like to know what if the parent does not want to report it to the police in case of a sexual abuse.
Yeah, so the government has mandated that schools have to report whether a parents want to or not. In that case, the school will have to report it to the police. The police will get in touch with the parent, and then the parent informs the police that I don't want to file a case, etc. But it is mandatory reporting. You can get arrested if you don't report it.
Okay. So, ma'am, there is a question. Instead of coloring 11 bees, what other things can be done?
Circle 11 objects. There are so many other ways, simpler ways in which counting would be involved. Because when I'm coloring 11 bees, I'm actually not counting. While I colored one bee, I've forgotten the number also where I was. So I am not actually counting. So give me a counting activity. Counting activity can be circle 11 from this group, okay? Or tick 11 items from this group. So they are actually counting while they are doing it. So very important that let's not do these senseless activities just because they were done with us.
There's a request from one of the teachers saying that can you please tell us once again what is the full form of water, because she
Okay,
apparently joined a little late.
fine. Water is W stands for what, why, when, how. Asking questions like this. We are giving children activities to color 11 bees. Do we even ask that is it going to be applicable for a child? Is it really helping a child? So ask questions. W stands for why, what, when, which means ask questions. A stands for attention and amygdala, which means if your child is stressed out, this is a stressful activity for many children when you give them to color a lot of objects. It's boring. And boredom is also stress. Then attention goes for a toss. So then they don't do it. When I ask children to write 50 times letter A, that's stressful and that's boring. So I will stop paying attention. So you will notice in the last 5 lines, children have just written however they want. And then we feel that they don't know how to write. It's not that. T stands for theories. Are you all aware of educational theories? If you are not, please buy our latest book. Please buy my latest book, A to Z of Early Childhood Education. E, what does E stand for? E stands for emergency and safety. Why is that important? Because if I don't feel safe in a school, I won't be able to pay attention. And R stands for readiness. Are we preparing children before we dive into a subject? Readiness is a very important term. It's called reading readiness, writing readiness, number readiness, which means before I teach you to read, I must teach your mind to ready your mind for that learning. So that is what, in B.Ed colleges also, when we made a lesson plan, we used to say introduction. So that introduction is what is actually preparing your mind for what is to come. That is very important. If you look at the Panchadi in the NCF also, and you look at the first step, that is also an introduction. So readiness is a very important part of curriculum development, lesson planning, or teacher development.
Maybe one last question before we wind up. There is a very important question that one teacher has posted. Is there any activity for good or bad touches for the pre-primary classes? Can you suggest an activity?
Oh, yes, of course. Three things I can suggest. Number one, we have a Muppet video. Just go on YouTube and type Good Touch, Bad Touch, Swati Popat, and you will get a Muppet video. So you can show that video to children, which actually explains to them what is good touch, what is bad touch, etc. Number two, I have written a storybook called The Secret Touch. Again, that's available on the ECA-A.P.E.R website. I have already put it on the chat. I'm again putting the name of the website here so that all of you can access this. And please understand, when you buy anything from ECA-A.P.E.R, it goes to children because it's a non-profit association. So it doesn't come to me. When you buy a book from ECA, I don't get anything. ECA gets it and works with children. So the secret touch. Number three, ECA runs a course on POXO and good touch, bad touch. All the teachers should get themselves qualified by doing that certificate course. So go on the website and you'll be able to see all that.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for a wonderful session and so much information that's important. I hope everybody enjoyed the session as much as I did.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Meena. You were such a great help.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank
My
you.
pleasure.
Bye. Bye.